Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Gaurav Sharma and with me is Manoj Singh Rana, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India's ambassador to China, Vikram Misri, draws attention to the plight of the students hit by crushing travel restrictions. United States decries surveillance, harassment and intimidation of foreign journalists in China. First flight of Operation Allies Refuge evacuating Afghan nationals fearing Taliban reprisal lands in the US. BRICS Counter-Terrorism Action Plan finalized at the 6th meeting of the BRICS Counter-Terrorism Working Group. US President Joe Biden announces new measures to incentivize federal employees to get vaccinated to counter the Delta variant spread. India participates in the third Arctic Science Ministerial Meet. And at the Tokyo Olympics, boxer Lavlina Borgohain, ace shuttler PV Sindhu and the men's hockey team shine for India. As the nationwide free COVID-19 vaccination campaign at government facilities for those above 18 years is underway, we advise our young listeners to get vaccinated and help others get vaccinated. We also advise our listeners not to lower their guard as COVID-19 remains a threat to our health. Please stay at home unless it is essential to go out and continue to follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki doori for social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact the national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. India's ambassador to China, Vikram Misri, on Friday said that a more sustainable path is required to address current realities in a pandemic-hit world. The ambassador of India, who was among the speakers at an international forum in Beijing, drew particular attention to the plight of students who had been hit hard by the controls that the pandemic had brought on. He said travel restrictions had hurt the student community particularly badly.
I don't want to sound overly pessimistic, but I think the first step on the way to a post-pandemic world is to learn to live with the world as it is now. This pandemic may be the most serious one in living memory, but it should not be seen as the last one. It stands to reason then that we need a more sustainable path in addressing current realities and in facing up to future ones. A path that is not dependent on repetitive and massive lockdowns, crushing travel restrictions that have impacted students particularly badly, and an intense undercurrent of suspicion about everything.
Ambassador Misri also expressed his views on various other relevant contemporary issues at the forum, which was organized by a prominent Chinese think tank, Center for China and Globalization. The ambassador highlighted the current lack of trust and transparency in the international sphere and recalled Foreign Minister Jaishankar's observation about how the pandemic had induced narrower definitions of self-interest globally, calling for greater international cooperation in an environment where countries were concerned about risks to their critical supply chains and worried by their overdependence in certain areas. The ambassador advocated the need to stabilize supply chains and make them more resilient by investing in diversification and redundancy.
COVID-19 has also moved the needle in the direction of risks as opposed to opportunity. And suddenly, risk aversion is at an all-time high. Many have been forced to see in stark relief the importance of reliable supply chains, and now everyone feels the need for strategic autonomy to address overdependence. And the discourse is slowly but steadily shifting towards the need to create greater global capacities by promoting decentralized globalization and establishing resilient supply chains to de-risk the world economy.
The ambassador clarified that the solution was not a turn away from globalization, but addresses the challenges facing it and taking into account the capacities and capabilities of all actors in a multipolar and shifting environment. Noting the importance of trust and transparency, the ambassador said that if all that the pandemic ended up doing was to enhance suspicions among countries, then not only would human lives have been lost, but humanity itself would stand diminished.
Globalization is deep and pervasive, and will continue to be a force to contend with. What COVID has thrown into stark relief are some of the particular risks of its current incarnation. The task before us is therefore to de-risk an architecture of decentralized globalization based on multiple supply chains and more engines of growth will strengthen global resilience and confidence and provide the redundancy enabling the world to face the next pandemic better. Going forward, trust and transparency need to be the watchwords.
Prasar Bharati correspondent in Beijing reports that ambassadors from other countries like Brazil, Egypt, Indonesia and Australia also echoed similar sentiments and called for more trust in the global system and reduce the barriers in mobility and global trade. Meanwhile, the United States said that it is deeply concerned with the increasingly harsh surveillance, harassment and intimidation of the US and other foreign journalists in China. In a statement, the US State Department said that the journalists include those foreign journalists covering the devastation and loss of life caused by recent floods in Henan. The statement also alluded the Chinese government's purported claims to welcome foreign media and support their work, but its actions tell a different story. The US State Department underlined China's harsh rhetoric promoted through official state media towards any news it perceives to be critical of China's policies. It said that foreign journalists are increasingly refused visas to enter or remain in China. The US called upon China to act as a responsible nation, hoping to welcome foreign media and the world for the upcoming Beijing 2022 Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games. According to the statement, Deputy Secretary Sherman, in her meetings with Chinese officials in Tianjin, specifically raised the importance of media access, freedom from harassment and press freedom. The statement called on the Chinese officials to ensure that journalists remain safe and are able to report freely.
The first flight of Operation Allies Refuge carrying Afghans who are eligible for Special Immigrant Visas, SIV, and their families arrived in the United States on Friday. US President Joe Biden hailed the development as an important milestone towards fulfilling their promise to the Afghan nationals who assisted America in its longest war. A report.
Operation Allies Refuge refers to the attempt to evacuate the Afghan nationals and their families who had helped the United States and its allies during their operations in the 2-decade-long war in Afghanistan from potential Taliban retribution. Announcing special immigrant visas for such Afghan nationals, US President Joe Biden in his address earlier this month said that the US is in discussions with its partners to provide safe havens for their relocation. Mr. Biden had also announced that relocation flights to this effect would start by the end of this month. The flight that landed in the US on Friday is the first of such flights. Meanwhile, a US government watchdog in a report released on Thursday highlighted Taliban assassinations of Afghan pilots. This is another worrisome development for the Afghan Air Force as it reels from a surge in fighting in the country. According to statements by Afghan government officials to the media, at least 7 Afghan pilots have been assassinated off base in recent months. The US, in a statement, said that they will continue to support Afghanistan through security and humanitarian assistance as they approach the August 31st deadline for evacuating their troops from the war-torn nation. The statement also called for an immediate reduction in violence in Afghanistan and for all regional actors to encourage the parties to return to negotiations without delay. This is Pawan for World News, AIR.
The 6th meeting of the BRICS Counter-Terrorism Working Group was held virtually on the 28th and 29th of this month under the chairship of India. The main outcome of the working group meeting was the finalization of the BRICS Counter-Terrorism Action Plan containing specific measures to implement the BRICS Counter-Terrorism Strategy adopted by BRICS leaders in 2020. The action plan is aimed at further strengthening result-oriented cooperation between BRICS countries in areas such as preventing and combating terrorism, radicalization, financing of terrorism, misuse of internet by terrorists, and curbing travel of terrorists. The BRICS Counter-Terrorism Action Plan is one of the key deliverables during India's chairship of BRICS and will be adopted at the meeting of BRICS National Security Advisor scheduled next month. During the working group meeting, the BRICS countries also exchanged views on terrorism threat assessment at national, regional and global level and resolved to further enhance counter-terrorism cooperation in line with the action plan.
The 12th edition of Exercise Indra Navy, a biennial bilateral maritime exercise between the Indian Navy and the Russian Navy, was held in the Baltic Sea from the 28th to the 29th of July. Initiated in 2003, Ex-Indra Navy epitomizes the long-term strategic relationship between the two navies. In a statement, the Defence Ministry said that the exercise was undertaken as part of the visit of INS Tabar to St. Petersburg, Russia, to participate in the 325th Navy Day celebrations of the Russian Navy. The exercise progressed over 2 days and included various facets of fleet operations such as anti-air firings, underway replenishment drills, helicopter ops, boarding drills, and seamanship evolutions. The statement added that the exercise is another milestone in strengthening cooperation between the two navies and reinforcing the long-standing bond of friendship between the two countries. Elsewhere, the Indian naval ship INS Saryu, an indigenously built offshore patrol vessel, is undertaking coordinated patrol COPAT with Indonesian naval ship KRI Bung Tomo. The 36th edition of COPAT between India and Indonesia will also witness participation of maritime patrol aircraft from both the nations. The exercise being conducted as a non-contact at-sea-only exercise in view of the COVID-19 pandemic highlights the high degree of mutual trust and confidence, synergy and cooperation between the two friendly navies. In a statement, the Defence Ministry said that India and Indonesia have been carrying out coordinated patrols along the International Maritime Boundary Line, IMBL, twice a year since 2002, with an aim of keeping this vital part of the Indian Ocean region safe and secure for commercial shipping, international trade and conduct of legitimate maritime activities. COPATs help build understanding and interoperability between navies and facilitate institution of measures to prevent and suppress illegal, unreported, unregulated IUU fishing, drug trafficking, maritime terrorism, armed robbery and piracy. As part of the Government of India's vision of Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, the Indian Navy has been proactively engaging with countries in the Indian Ocean region to enhance maritime security in the region. The 36th edition of the IND Indo-COPAT seeks to bolster the maritime cooperation between the two navies and forge strong bonds of friendship across the Indo-Pacific.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that Kuwait is a vital partner to the United States, both on a bilateral basis and for stability in the region. Speaking to Kuwaiti state media on his visit to the country on Friday, Mr. Blinken said that the visit comes on the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Kuwait. Mr. Blinken underlined Kuwait's role in ending the Gulf Rift and bringing the countries together. Earlier, Mr. Blinken met the Emir, the Crown Prince, his counterpart Foreign Minister Al-Sabah, the Prime Minister and the Leader of Parliament. Thousands of firefighters are battling wildfires in villages and resorts on Turkey's Mediterranean and Aegean coasts. According to reports, 4 people have died and dozens have been taken to hospital. An investigation has been launched to determine if some of the fires were a result of arson. During a visit to Manavgat, Turkey's Agriculture Minister Bekir Pakdemirli said bringing the fires under control might take time.
India's cumulative COVID vaccination coverage has achieved the landmark milestone of 46 crore on Friday. The Union Health Ministry said more than 44,38,000 vaccine doses were administered till 7 p.m. on Friday. The new phase of universalization of COVID-19 vaccination commenced from the 21st of last month. Over 20,96,000 vaccine doses were administered as the first dose, and more than 3,41,000 vaccine doses were given as the second dose in the age group of 18 to 44 years today. Cumulatively, over 15 crore 17 lakh persons across 37 states and UTs have received their first dose, and over 80 lakh have received their second dose since the start of Phase 3 of the vaccination drive. Meanwhile, the Health Ministry said over 2,27,000 pregnant women have received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine under the ongoing National COVID Vaccination Drive in less than a month. This is a result of regular counselling of pregnant women by health workers and medical officers about risks of the COVID-19 infection to pregnant women and benefits of the COVID-19 vaccination. This sustained campaign has empowered pregnant women to make an informed choice on taking the COVID vaccination. Several initiatives have been taken by states to encourage pregnant women to be motivated for the vaccine, such as special vaccination sessions for the pregnant women. National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization had recommended vaccination for pregnant women, leading to inclusion of pregnant women in India's COVID vaccination drive. Tamil Nadu is leading the way by vaccinating over 78,838 pregnant women, followed by Andhra Pradesh with over 34,000 and Odisha with 29,821. Counseling the eligible beneficiaries by the frontline workers at the antenatal clinics and mobilization by ASHA workers for vaccination have resulted in building confidence and acceptance in the community.
The southern India state of Kerala continues to report a surge in COVID-19 cases as it confirmed 20,722 new infection cases on Friday. The test positivity rate has increased to 13.61%. 116 deaths were also confirmed due to COVID, taking the death toll to 16,701 in the state. Bringing respite, 14,651 people recovered from the COVID infection. At present, over 150,000 people are undergoing COVID treatment in the state. Meanwhile, as Kerala is witnessing an unprecedented surge in COVID cases, a central team has reached the state to take stock of the ongoing situation. The six-member team, led by the National Disease Control Director Sujit Kumar Singh, will work in two groups to closely analyze the spread of infection in 10 select districts of the state. The central team's visit is to ensure complete assistance from the centre to Kerala in order to control the rate of spread of the ongoing pandemic.
And now let's take a look at the coronavirus updates from around the world. US President Joe Biden announced additional efforts to fight the Delta variant of the coronavirus as the nation gears up to expand its vaccination efforts. The new measures impose requirements on the federal workforce to get vaccinated. According to the new measures, the federal government employee and on-site contractor will be asked to attest to their vaccination status. Anyone who does not attest to being fully vaccinated will be required to wear a mask on the job, no matter their geographic location, physically distance from all other employees and visitors, comply with a weekly or bi-weekly screening testing requirement, and be subject to restrictions on official travel. With the U.S. federal government employing more than 4 million Americans, the new measures are directed to encourage employers across the private sector to follow suit. The government of Bangladesh has extended the ongoing closure of all educational institutions till the 31st of August in view of the continuing COVID-19 pandemic in the country. A press release issued by the Ministry of Education said that the Qawmi Madrasas and Ibtidai Madrasas will also remain closed till August the 31st. Earlier, the educational institutions were to be closed till July the 31st. The government has taken the decisions based on the recommendations of the National Technical Advisory Committee, considering the interest of the students, teachers and employees of the school. The government of Japan has decided to provide approximately 1.5 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines manufactured in Japan through the COVAX facility to Sri Lanka. In a statement, the Japanese Foreign Ministry said that the vaccines are part of the assistance by Japan to contribute to the prevention of the spread of COVID-19 in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, the Australian city of Sydney will draft in the army on Monday to enforce its toughest lockdown since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. From Monday, as many as 300 Australian army personnel will visit the homes of those who have tested positive to ensure they are respecting quarantine rules. And now a report from the business world.
At the stock markets, the Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange fell 66 points, 0.1% to end at 52,587. Nifty at the National Stock Exchange shed 15 points, 0.1% to 15,763. At the domestic foreign exchange market, the rupee weakened by 13 paise to 74 rupees and 41 paise against the US dollar. Among global markets, key indices in the Asia Pacific ended lower. So Japan's Nikkei 225 index dropped 1.8%. China Shanghai Composite Index fell 0.4%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng lost 1.4%. South Korea's Kospi Index declined 1.2%. And Singapore's Straits Times Index shed 0.4%. In Europe, London's FTSE 100 had fallen 0.8%. France's CAC 40 had shed 0.1%, and Germany's DAX declined 0.8% in intraday trade. Global crude oil prices fell today but remained on track to post the weekly gains, with demand growing faster than supply. While vaccinations are expected to alleviate the impact of a resurgence in COVID-19 infections across the globe. So Brent crude futures for October shed 20 cents to $74.90 per barrel. US crude futures fell 20 cents to $73.42 a barrel. Back home, gold rose 294 rupees to 47,442 rupees per 10 grams in Delhi. Arjun Chaudhary for World News, All India Radio.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts. Moving on to sports, in Tokyo Olympics, Indian women athletes were in the limelight on Friday. India's ace shuttler PV Sindhu stormed into the semi-final of Tokyo Olympics, blowing away Akane Yamaguchi of Japan in an exciting encounter by 21-13 and 22-20. Boxer Lavlina Borgohain ensured a medal for India on Friday. She entered into the semi-final of the women's welterweight category, defeating Chen Nianqing of Chinese Taipei 4-1. Expressing happiness over her victory, Lavlina said she will now focus on winning the gold medal.
मेडल तो एक ही होता है, गोल्ड ही होता है, तो उसी के लिए अभी तैयारी करना है मुझे. नेक्स्ट सेमीफाइनल का प्लानिंग करना है, कैसे क्या किया जाए, कैसे के साथ फाइट किया जाए. बस मैं वही सोच रही थी कि मुझे फ्री होकर स्ट्रेस नहीं लेना है. पूरा इंडिया मेरे लिए प्रे कर रहा है, मुझे पता है, तो मुझे खुद को विश्वास रखना है. मुझे बस अपना 100% देना है.
Youth Affairs and Sports Minister Anurag Thakur has praised Lavlina for her achievement.
जो भारत का एक और मेडल पक्का हुआ है, मैं तो यही कहूंगा, 130 करोड़ भारतीय शुभकामनाएं भेजते हैं कि आप गोल्ड मेडल जीत कर आए और देश को आपसे बहुत सारी उम्मीदें हैं. और बाकी भी जितने इवेंट्स हमारे बचते हैं उसमें हमारे खिलाड़ी शानदार प्रदर्शन करें, ऐसी हमारी उम्मीद है.
Indian men's hockey team beat host Japan by 5-3 in a thrilling Pool A group match. In women's hockey also, India won the Pool A group match, defeating Ireland 1-0, keeping its hopes alive in the Olympics. For India, Navneet Kaur struck at 57th minute, scoring the lone goal of the match. However, Olympic world number 1 archer Deepika Kumari's quest for an Olympic medal ended as she lost to Korean top seed An San in straight sets in the quarterfinals. An San wrapped up the women's individual match 6-0 in less than 6 minutes. In the biggest upset in Tokyo Olympics, one of the prominent players of tennis world, Novak Djokovic of Serbia, was beaten by Germany's Alexander Zverev 1-6, 6-3, 6-1 in the semi-final clash of the men's singles.
And now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Globe and Mail says ship tied to Israel's billionaire reportedly attacked off Oman. The Globe and Mail also says Lebanon president ready to answer questions on Beirut port explosion. Washington Post writes Peru's new president appoints Marxist as prime minister. Sputnik News posts Beijing vows to take necessary actions after UK aircraft strike group passes through the South China Sea. Sputnik News also posts UN mission in Afghanistan attacked, killing at least one police officer. Financial Times reports German inflation hits highest level since 2008. Wall Street Journal says Hong Kong protester first to be sentenced under China's national security law gets a 9-year sentence. And New York Times writes CDC internal report calls Delta variant as contagious as chickenpox.
Minister of State in the External Affairs Ministry, Ms. Meenakshi Lekhi, participated in the G20 Cultural Ministers Meeting 2021 on Friday. In a tweet, the minister said that she spoke about how the COVID pandemic has shown the need for international cooperation in all fields, including that of culture, by working towards capacity building and tech upgradation. The minister also welcomed the repatriation of 14 Indian works of art from the National Gallery of Australia. Ms. Lekhi outlined the significance of culture and creative sectors in providing economic growth and employment, as well as its potential to give more opportunities to women, youth and to local communities. She also emphasized the consumption of practices that are more environment friendly, as in the production of handlooms, handicrafts and khadi, and its importance and relevance for India. India participated in the third Arctic Science Ministerial ASM3 meeting, jointly organized by Iceland and Japan and virtually hosted by Japan, for discussing research and cooperation in the Arctic. India plans to launch ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar NISAR satellite, a joint ISRO-NASA mission with the goal to make global measurement of land surface changes using advanced radar imaging. NISAR is proposed to be launched in early 2023. NISAR is a joint Earth observation mission between ISRO and NASA for global observations over all land masses, including polar cryosphere and Indian Ocean region. Speaking to All India Radio in an exclusive interview, Acting Chief of NASA, Dr. Bhavya Lal, talked about the project.
It's a collaboration between NASA and ISRO, and it's a joint Earth observing mission between our two agencies. And each of us, NASA and ISRO, are providing separate radars that are optimized in their own ways to allow the mission to observe a wide range of changes that either one could do alone. And I was fortunate that when I went to JPL, I not only saw both the Indian and the United States, the SAR, the radars that are being developed and being integrated. I was able to meet many of the scientists who are working on the Indian side, and it was just so heartening for me to see such an extraordinary collaboration. I think it's NASA's largest collaboration internationally, and the mission will improve our understanding of key impacts of climate change, advance our knowledge of natural hazards, and enable many applications for societal benefit. Obviously, NISAR is only one example of collaborations. There are discussions underway regarding potential activities in earth science and planetary science, heliophysics, and even human spaceflight. NASA remains committed to working with international partners to accomplish these stunning achievements in science, technology, and exploration. And the Perseverance mission to Mars was another sort of mission with lots of international partners, and it reinforces these strong bonds. And I hope that we will continue to have these international missions, including with India, in the coming months and years.
A quick look at the headlines once again. India's ambassador to China, Vikram Misri, draws attention to the plight of the students hit by crushing travel restrictions. United States decries surveillance, harassment and intimidation of foreign journalists in China. First flight of Operation Allies Refuge evacuating Afghan nationals fearing Taliban reprisal lands in the US. BRICS Counter-Terrorism Action Plan finalized at the 6th meeting of the BRICS Counter-Terrorism Working Group. US President Joe Biden announces new measures to incentivize federal employees to get vaccinated to counter the Delta variant spread. India participates in the 3rd Arctic Science Ministerial Meet. And at the Tokyo Olympics, boxer Lavlina Borgohain, ace shuttler PV Sindhu and the men's hockey team shine for India. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Morocco on their National Day.
जाना तो तेरी कहिए जे बीद पराई जानी रे
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.